After the inaugural hearing of the Doge subcommittee yesterday, Elon Musk is feeling the heat now more so than ever. His corruption, his criminality, the government contracts he is awarding to himself willy-nilly, the millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars he is receiving because he essentially bought our government are all being brought to light. And of course, he is not a fan of that. And he is not a fan of the individual who maybe did the best job we've seen over the past couple days in doing so, and Jamie Raskin, who gave a great speech on the House floor that we are going to watch. But before we do, if I can quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now let's get into Jamie Raskin's call out of Elon Musk.
Mr. Speaker, I begin with an urgent constitutional public service announcement based on millions of calls and messages that have been flooding Congress. There is a serial constitutional violator at large right now in the District of Columbia, whose overall project to dismantle our Constitution and rule of law is now the target or subject of at least a dozen different federal court temporary restraining orders and preliminary injunctions across the land, and also faces emergency civil actions in dozens of other courts and jurisdictions. The suspect has been described as a very evil individual by Steve Bannon and has been operating in clandestine fashion with a night crew of computer hacking juvenile associates, one of whom goes by the alias of Big Balls, and another one they call The Kid, who has been known to post racist and anti-Semitic provocations online. The accelerating spree of constitutional offenses alarming the nation involves dozens of episodes of computer fraud and data theft affecting potentially 300 million Americans and escalating threats against congressionally created federal agencies serving the people, from NIH to the National Weather Service to NOAA to the Department of Justice, public workers, teachers and students, prosecutors of cop-assaulting criminals and seditious conspirators against our government, FBI agents, and anyone who depends on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, or any other computerized public payment system. The apparent ringleader of all the constitutional mayhem is a reported father of 12, a formerly deportable undocumented immigrant who worked illegally in the country and is apparently part of a loose network of Silicon Valley billionaires who oppose American constitutional democracy and openly favor creation of a monarchical techno-state under their control. The suspect was seen yesterday in the vicinity of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue Northwest and is known to have been consorting as recently as a few days ago with a convicted felon from New York. Described as the richest person in the world, the suspect is both a government contractor with billions of dollars in defense contracts, and we learned yesterday $400 million slated from the State Department for some of his armored Tesla vehicles. And also, he is a part-time government worker whose many taxpayer-supported businesses are being investigated, fined, or sued by numerous federal agencies, including the Department of Transportation, the National Labor Relations Board, the Department of Justice, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and the Securities and Exchange Commission. The suspect has allegedly been working to seize control over several of these same agencies to shut them down, which would presumably terminate all of the relevant threatening investigations. The public has never received from the suspect any ethics disclosure forms required of all federal workers, nor any conflict of interest waiver to resolve his glaring conflicts of interest. The suspect spent his formative years in apartheid South Africa and has been known to post racist and anti-Semitic material and to engage in a Nazi salute in public. Steve Bannon calls him a truly evil individual. The ringleader and his associates, sometimes called the Muscovites, have been seen by numerous federal workers violating the separation of powers and the spending clause, usurping the powers of this body, trampling the civil service laws, and violating the rights of both his federal and corporate workers. The suspect his sponsors and accomplices should be considered dangerous to the constitutional rights, freedoms, and institutions of the people, as well as their property, their jobs, and their livelihoods. If you know anything about the situation and you're a Republican member, please get in touch immediately with the Democrats so we can form a majority to stop this unprecedented attack on the Constitution and American law and order before we end up like apartheid South Africa or Orban's Hungary or Putin's Russia. Now, back to our regularly scheduled program where we avoid the constitutional crisis overtaking the first and greatest multiracial, multi-ethnic constitutional democracy on earth and instead pass completely redundant, unnecessary and sloppily drafted laws that allow us to vote against immigrants, whether documented or undocumented, as Elon Musk was, without either engaging in comprehensive immigration reform or fixing the border. Now, with this bill, House Republicans are once again seeking to take political advantage of a horrific crime by seizing on the death of Agent Gonzalez in the performance of his duties while doing nothing to make our border more secure or to repair our broken immigration system. And everyone knows, of course, that they blew up the bipartisan border security deal that we had at the end of the last Congress. But H.R. 35 seeks to establish new criminal and immigration penalties on anyone, citizens, permanent residents, documented immigrants or undocumented immigrants, for this offense: fleeing a Border Patrol agent or a law enforcement officer who's working with the Border Patrol. But fleeing Border Patrol at the border already carries substantial criminal and legal penalties under current law. That's already a crime. Under 18 U.S. Code 758, whoever flees or evades a checkpoint operated by the Customs and Border Protection or any other law enforcement agency in a motor vehicle and flees from federal, state, or local law enforcement in excess of the legal speed limit can be charged with and convicted of high-speed flight from an immigration checkpoint. Furthermore, many decades of prosecution and case law make it perfectly clear that fleeing law enforcement is a crime involving moral turpitude for which a conviction will render a non-citizen, whether documented or undocumented, immediately deportable and inadmissible to the country. In other words, what they're dragging us through again is already against the law. So if all of it is already a crime, why do we need another version of it? Except for plainly opportunistic political purposes. And I know those are the only bills they've been bringing forward. They've got no other agenda for the country, and they've handed over the legislative authority of the Congress of the United States to Elon Musk, the fourth branch of government. But in any event, they want us to pass again something that's already against the law. Well, we don't need it. And in fact, this characteristically poorly drafted pile-on bill is so poorly drafted this time that it could subject not just undocumented people, not just permanent residents, but American citizens to prison sentences for conduct that the vast majority of Americans would not even recognize as a crime at all and would not see as a crime. Similarly, in the immigration context, admitting to acts that constitute this nebulous, vague conduct would render a green card holder deportable. Now, the bill applies its criminal and immigration penalties even if the law enforcement officer is in plain clothes and driving an unmarked undercover vehicle. There are a lot of good reasons why a law-abiding citizen or permanent resident might be wary of pulling over for an unmarked vehicle. Just last week, reports emerged of an alarming trend across the country of rapists, criminals, and vigilantes pretending to be immigration enforcement personnel and then targeting people that they thought might be undocumented in order to rape them or assault them or harass them or what have you. I saw on TV a case last night of a sexual assailant who accosted a woman and forcibly assaulted her while pretending to be an ICE agent. I saw that last night. Another man, Sean Michael Johnson, was arrested for impersonating a law enforcement officer along with felony kidnapping, larceny, assault, and battery after he impersonated an ICE agent and stopped a group of men in their car because he told them they were not lawfully present in the country. In this environment, Mr. Speaker, it would be neither unreasonable nor surprising for law-abiding citizens to be wary of pulling over for an unmarked car that claims to be working with Border Patrol. Further, given that the Trump administration is deputizing anyone they can to get to aid immigration enforcement efforts, the number of officers, both in police clothing and in unmarked clothing, to whom this law would apply is staggering. In backing this bill, our colleagues want to impose extraordinary criminal and immigration consequences for not immediately pulling over when an unmarked car driven by a total stranger hails you at a time when criminals, including a pardoned January 6th felon, by the way, are going around impersonating immigration enforcement officers. That is a real trend happening now. And I would love to be convinced it's not, if the gentleman has reason to think that all of these reports and arrests of people impersonating officers are wrong. But this is a trend in the country. And all of this simply to give more power to target immigrants, which already exists, just for the purposes of the legislative show. This is outrageous, and I urge my colleagues to oppose the legislation. I'll reserve at this point, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman.
This is the type of message that we need to deliver, and it's no shock that it's Jamie Raskin who is its messenger. He has been such a great leader, and not just calling out Elon Musk, but really showing Democrats how to do so. Yesterday, we saw Jamie Raskin get on the House floor and call out one of his Republican colleagues who was a former student, saying that he was a great student, didn't give a great argument on behalf of Donald Trump and Elon Musk's policies. Jamie Raskin is a professor, and Jamie Raskin is taking Republicans to school, but also teaching Democrats how we deliver a message we're going to be talking about on this show every single day. And if you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button. You can leave a like on this video, and if you stuck around to the end, you can drop a blue heart in the comments. And until next time, I'll see you soon.